Another reprieve for the homeless encampment on Notre-Dame Street. You may have noticed it if you've driven Notre-Dame in recent months. It's a collection of tarps and tents and other kind of makeshift living arrangements. It is of great concern to the city, which would really like to see it go. The fire department, which often becomes concerned about cooking and heating procedures being used by the inhabitants of that little community. And it is of concern to the owner of the land, the transport ministry. Here to tell us more about the reprieve and the legal argument underpinning it is Helena Lamed, pro bono lawyer, the mobile legal clinic for the Unhoused. She's part of a team of lawyers steering this motion through the courts. Helena Lamed, welcome to CJAD.
Hi, thanks for having me.
What is the latest legally? Where is this case now in the courts?
Well, the reprieve that you described was actually put into place in early June when we pleaded a provisional injunction, which has been renewed by way of a safeguard order until the injunction is heard on the merits, on the basis of the legal claim, which is scheduled, as far as we know so far, to be heard at the end of September. That date may have to be put off in case if there's the legal resources or the judging resources are not available. But the point was debated on the urgency of this request to stop an eviction of this camp, largely because there's no place for the people there to go. The shelters in the area are completely full. People are turned away every night, whether it's for a bed or even just for a chair to sit on. And the point is, what are you doing to homeless people when you turf them from this section of land, knowing that they have nowhere else to go? The problems of homelessness are very complex. There are many reasons why people find themselves on the street. The people in this encampment have been there for some time, have difficulty if they gain a place to a shelter, managing to respect all of the rules that go with living in collectivity. And but the main legal point is: is it a breach of rights under the charter if you evict people with nowhere to go? So it's a kind of negative right thing. Do they have the right? Or do they have the right to be left there? Or can one stop an eviction from taking place when there's simply nowhere for people to go?
This, by the way, is in the Mercier-Hochelaga-Maisonneuve district. We have heard complaints from people who live in the neighborhood that they feel their right to enjoy their community is being impeded by the presence of this encampment. It's unsightly. It may be unsafe. It may be a fire hazard. Some of the behavior is very problematic. That's a green space that people like to use sometimes with their kids, and they're hesitant to expose their kids, or they fear for their own safety going through there. Do you have any sympathy for those arguments?
No one wants to see people homeless and living in misery, of course. And concerns of citizens for their own situation or for the situation of these other people is understandable. The issue here really was the question of the balance of inconvenience is pleaded at that provisional level. And a judge found that the balance of inconvenience weighed in favor of our arguments, that it was more drastic and serious and terrible to throw these people out of the encampment knowing that there's nowhere for them to go than for these otherwise very reasonable concerns of citizens. It was a momentary thing. It was, what is the situation right now or right then in June? But given the length of time that it takes to get to court to hear the matter on the merits, there's been a safeguard order that has maintained the judgment on the provisional injunction until the hearing on the merits. So the balancing of people's rights at that moment of the provisional was decided a certain way. And it's no longer a question when it comes to the permanent injunction. The permanent injunction is decided on the basis of, do the people seeking the permanent injunction have a right? And that's new law really right now, because it hasn't really been decided whether definitively whether people with in Quebec anyway, where can you stop or prevent an eviction of an encampment where there's absolutely nowhere for the people to go.
I noticed, though, that you're saying no beds available in the area. Are you talking Mercier, Hochelaga, Maisonneuve, or are you talking Montreal in general or the Montreal area?
It's both. And don't forget that people who live in an encampment in a certain area use the resources that are available in that area, even for day use, such as food, cafeteria, and hygiene and psychosocial support. And there are three shelters that provide this in the area, but they regularly turn away people, and they have for the last year. And the statistics are very clear on that. The situation is the same across the island, although it's harder to sort of imagine that someone whose resources and whose help and support is in the Hochelaga Maisonneuve area can find themselves in a place that's 10 kilometers away in some other place on the island. But even so, even if one said, okay, the whole island is a frictionless place, one can move anybody anywhere, there are no places. People queue up and are turned away in all of the shelters. So this is a problem at another level, that the explosion of homelessness in the city and in the province generally has far outstripped the existing resources. And this is the city has acknowledged that and has begged for help, because homelessness in Quebec is a problem of the provincial government and not of the municipality. The provincial government has the jurisdiction to deal with this and not the municipality, unlike in other common law provinces.
I agree that nobody wants to see people living in encampments. I think maybe the worry, I'm going to be devil's advocate here, is that a ruling in favor of this encampment, allowing it to continue indefinitely, is a shortcut to disaster if there's a fire over the winter from a heating device or something like that, and B, an encouragement for other encampments to pop up all over the place, simply because some people who are home don't like going into shelters, and they don't like the constraints of shelters, and they would rather have the permission to camp on public land and thereby, infringe on the rights of people to enjoy their parks and their green spaces in safety.
Well, I think that the devil's advocate position is a very cruel one, because this isn't always a question of choice, and it's not as if there are places available just like a hotel and people choose not to go. The people in the encampments and people who are camping generally try to get into shelters, and they can't, because there's simply no place. The system for entering a shelter is complex, and although these resources are absolutely devoted to their mission of helping homeless people, without the resources and with the constraints of the bricks and mortar that they have, they simply cannot accommodate them. So don't forget that the citizens who complain are complaining from the position of a dwelling. They have where to go to sleep at night, they have a stove to cook their food inside, and they have a shower and toilet. So the people who make these complaints and who are offended by the presence, as one should be outraged in a society where on the island of Montreal 10,000 people are homeless, nonetheless, the complaints are from the point of view of people in dwellings already. And that's a huge difference. As for the security of the city, of course, there are stakes of that. And in many municipalities in other cities in Canada, the municipality has increased and helped out in security and cleanliness and hygiene and so on in encampments, rather than simply abandon the people to a life living rough. So I think that the permanent injunction that we're seeking is with respect to this particular area. It's not a blanket, anything goes encampment situation. And it highlights the inability of our society to deal with this problem. And we have to do something quickly. And I mean, our municipal election campaign in Montreal, in part, is going to revolve around this issue.
But Helena, you know that housing units are not built quickly. Housing units are built over years. So
we're talking here we're not even talking here about a permanent housing. There is a very, very long waiting list for permanent housing. Not only for the unhoused, but for people who need affordable accommodation. We're not even talking about that here. That's not even the issue. The issue here is temporary emergency lodging, where there is no, that is to say, shelters on a night-to-night or more prolonged basis, but in temporary shelter.
Yes, well, Montreal did open up a winter one. I guess we'll have to see, although it usually the decision is made so late to open up the extra temporary beds in hotels, for example.
No, the extra temporary is the Haute Chaleur, the winter temporary housing, is not usually beds, it's chairs, and it's places where people can go out of the cold to sit. And there are rotations where you can, in some places, they limit the number of hours that a person can spend in a chair before they have to leave to allow someone else to come in to sit in a chair, and so on.
Well, Helena, I'll beg to differ, because there was a hotel not far from the station that 2 years ago was used as a temporary shelter with beds in it, because it was a hotel, a former hotel. In any event, I'm very sorry. We're up against traffic. I do have to let you go, but I thank you very much for explaining all of this to us. Helena Lamed is a lawyer working with the Mobile Legal Clinic for the Unhoused. Thank you for the interview.